start us off. Welcome everybody to an episode of King of the Court. We got myself, we got Jimmy, and we have a very special guest. Who is it, Jimmy?
I mean, we've got the GOAT. We've got the pickle GOAT, Ben Johns.
Thank you for joining us, Ben. It is 11:30 in the morning, and I think you just woke up. Is that right?
Hey guys, thank you. No, didn't just get up. I know it may look like that because bad hair day is just my regular day. I just came back from a cold plunge, so after I'm in the water, the hair just gets like this, and I look interesting to say the least.
Hair looks good. Ben's eating lunch. He's relaxed. He's ready to go.
Love it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we're going to sit down and talk with you. You're out there in Austin, kind of just hanging out. And then next week we have MLP. And then the week after that, we got nationals. So one more week off and then we're back at it.
Yeah. What have you done during your time off, Ben?
We got a big couple weeks coming up. I went on a little vacation. I went to the Northeast, kind of Montreal, Vermont, Massachusetts, and then Maryland, which is my home, and saw my parents and stuff. Okay. So it was like I wanted to see fall because Austin doesn't have a great fall, and I love fall. Yeah. So I did that mini vacation, and then I got about 10 days here. Got back like 3 days ago, maybe, and just training regular as always, and then ready for Dallas, basically.
Ben, you were at F1 this last week, right?
Yeah, I was. I was there yesterday.
And that was your second time going, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was the first time I've been to the Austin one, which was an amazing experience. I was at the Miami one last year, so I've done Miami and Austin now. Hopefully I get to do Vegas at some point since that's a thing now. Seems pretty crazy.
Dude, the Vegas one is insane.
It's just crazy to me, like the logistics and how many people they're fitting. And like Vegas is already a crowded place. Like it's already a zoo. What's it going to be like with a race there?
Vegas is going to be like, I don't even know how they're going to do it. Like,
well, they've already shut down. Well, not shut down, but they're already building out the strip.
Yeah. So, I mean, it goes right. Literally the course goes right past the Bellagio fountains, like something like that. Right. Like that's insane.
Yeah. Do you have a team or a driver?
I usually don't like to go, like, I don't care that much. It's not like I root for anybody in particular that much, but, and I usually don't go for like the top dog or whatever, but just kind of watching the show, which is how I got into Formula One, Drive to Survive, just how kind of Lewis Hamilton was with just, he's like cool as a cucumber. He's pretty chill. He's just interesting to get his perspective on things. So I've always liked Lewis Hamilton.
And he's American. You got to cheer for the Americans, right? Ben, do you do you think pickleball should have a show like that? How do you think that would do?
I think it would do well. I think they kind of struck gold with that Drive to Survive. They did a lot of things right, and I feel like they kind of found a recipe because I think the same guys who did that, they did like Full Swing for golf. I'm not sure if they did the tennis one, but it seems like people enjoy a behind the scenes look at professional sports. Yeah. What I would say is it would be entertaining with pickleball. I'm just not sure you have quite enough depth to the sport to tell something that's as compelling as it could be. So I'm not sure what exactly the right time would be, like when it's kind of ideal to do it, like strike while the iron's hot with pickleball being popular, but also when it's maybe a little more developed. Yeah. Can't really say when that might be, but I would say maybe not right now, but probably soon-ish.
Who are the personalities that you would have to have on there?
Jimmy Miller, definitely not Tyler, just Jimmy.
Ouch.
Yeah, Tyler's too low key. You wouldn't get enough out of him. I'm trying to think of there's so many. I would definitely have AJ. AJ would be spectacular to be around.
Zane Affleck.
Zane Affleck. Yes, I had both Zanes on. I think Till's funny. You got to have Tyson on there. There's a certain type of people that Tyson attracts, and you definitely want that crowd watching as well. So you want somebody like him. I'd say Matt Wright. You want Matt Wright just throw him in there with Tyson and see what happens. Create some fireworks. The girls, Jill Braverman, Anna Bright. Who else am I missing? Anybody, that has a lot of character and isn't afraid to show it, basically.
Yeah.
I like that.
I was texting Pardo and I was telling him to come down to Formula One, and I'm like, you got to come down here just to witness, just to be here to see the atmosphere, what they have going on, what they have set up. I mean, essentially.
So honestly, I think.
Go ahead.
Pickleball and the PPA and, really anybody that runs events, honestly, I think can learn a ton from how Formula One does its stuff, because I've never seen
exactly
an event that is run so well on such a large scale in terms of how easy, even when you show up, like how easy it is to get inside, like how you use your credentials, what's the layout geographically, just the ease in which everything is done. As a person that goes, I'm just like, this is how events should be done. Right. And I feel like you get a lot
of those tents that were for F1 are built out. They're not permanent stands. They're built out for those races.
Yeah, that's insane.
Right. Like Austin, of course, has that circuit. So, I mean, they have to put in a lot of stuff. They just have the track already there. But like Miami is built out. Vegas is built out. And that's kind of similar to what the PPA does. They have, a venue, but then they have to build around it a little bit. Even something like I was in, kind of it's an area, it's called the Paddock Pass or something. And I was like, hey, the PPA could do a much better job of selling not just VIP tickets, but, different sections of what kind of VIP are you, what kind of access do you get, what kind of privileges do you have? And, maybe the players need to give up some kind of a little bit of their privacy in order for that to happen. But, if that's better for the tournament and better for the players by extension, then, let's do it. Because, you could see the drivers like just walking past in the paddock.
Yeah.
And, they'd get harassed a little bit for pictures and stuff, but you could tell they just knew it was part of the gig. And obviously they get paid the big bucks because a lot of people are into that. So, and that's, it's just part of it.
Yeah. Don't you think that's part of the reason why pickleball is so popular is because the access to players right now? Like players are so accessible at tournaments.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least for now.
For now, yeah. And I'd say, you want to retain a little bit of that like Formula One does. Like as big as stars as they are, you can still access them pretty easily just by paying, a little more money basically. And I think pickleball should not lose that entirely. It shouldn't be where you have no access, right? But yeah, undoubtedly, I think there's a lot of spectators that if they are going to watch the pro game, they obviously love that they can, pretty easily ask for a picture or an autograph or even a conversation, right?
Yeah.
I may or may not have somehow snuck down to the pad. There's a massive group that was walking in, and I just kind of walked in with them, and we were literally on the runway for about 5 to 10 minutes before we had to leave. It was incredible.
You broke the law.
There's something
I said
about
I may
those
or
cars.
may not have. Oh. What?
I don't really know much about the sport, but there's just something about how majestic those cars are. I just think it's like exhilarating.
Yeah.
When they start, the heartbeat goes up. It's a pretty cool sport.
So have you bought a new motorhome?
Did you get a bus?
A new motorhome?
Did you buy a bus too?
RV?
And that's in reference to Ale.
Are we getting?
Years. No, I don't have a motorhome. I'm sorry.
You're not going bus.
I wish I could.
When's that coming?
Yeah. I've never really been a fan of buses, so that's probably never going to come, but I'll take it under due consideration. If the people want it, then maybe we'll have to make it happen.
Well, listen, you should get access to it anyways. So
as her partner, I think I got to demand some kind of
you like some.
I get like an hour
yeah,
for that, maybe.
Exactly.
Alrighty, let's get into some questions.
So
Jimmy.
Ben, here's the big thing. I know that you geek out and nerd out about this, so I want your take, since it's back to being a hot topic again, about these delaminated paddles. And Jilly B went off. She called PPA the most corrupt organization in sports, and she basically said that Carl is getting paid to pass certain paddles, which is wild. But the big paddles that came up were Annalie and Irina's paddle techs, and how they just sound different. They're not the same paddles you can buy off the shelf. And she, honestly, we'll just say that she came a little bit unhinged. So do you think, that this is still a problem? Is it?
Yeah. Everyone knows I'm very fervent on the paddle problem, so to speak. I've been very vocal about better testing needing to happen. And I still am. What I would say is that one, I don't really think there's corruption going on. I think at least we've gotten a lot better from what we had before, which was no on-site testing of any kind. Now we have ultrasonic and we have surface testing. And what I would say is those tests are more, they're there right now, not as this is perfect, not by any means. They're there as a deterrent, right? And Carl said it many times. He's like, I'm not here to try to fail people. I'm going to try to let you pass because we don't want defaults, right? With that being said, rules are rules and you need to be adhering to them. So really what I think we all want to see more in play is, ultrasonic testing is only for delamination, which I think pretty much all the delamination problems have gone away because people have realized, hey, you can't get away with that anymore because there is a test for it. So of course, is any company going to do? They're going to exploit what is not tested for, which would be, something like deflection or power. That's what we have to struggle to test for most right now. And even to some extent, we struggle to test for spin in certain ways. So one, you do need a better test. And, I've talked about it before, ideally velocity testing of some sort. And I know MLP's been working on that and they're, close to being able to do dynamic testing.
Some sort of like exit velocity, like baseball has.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause that's just what power is, right? That's what we're all concerned with. And deflection is, it's related, but it doesn't measure the same thing. So you can easily get around it. So like a good example, I think, is the new gearbox. And I don't know this for sure because I haven't really opened one up or anything. But I think, Rafa's a brilliant guy. He's, the engineer and owner of Gearbox. He does a great job with paddles. So
yeah,
I think that I think, obviously, I don't think he's cheating. It's legal, right? But I think it has ways of getting around deflection. There are plenty of ways to get around deflection and increase power while passing legally and being, at a power that's very high. And that's why I think it's important to go to a velocity limit and not a deflection.
Yeah, I don't think it's a secret. I don't think it's a secret that paddle was created to get around the testing.
And I even talked to Rafa about it. He doesn't really want pickleball to go that direction. Maybe it's even something to the point of like, hey, it's this easy to get around the test. We need better testing. Like it's almost like it spurs people on to do better. But what I would say is the PP I think is working on it, but what they don't seem to want to do is push for a solution, get it wrong, and then just be like, oh shoot, sorry, we messed up. Let's try to get this right again. It's more like waiting on MLP a little bit, making sure there's a good system put in place and that they don't have to retract and do again and again and again. I think that's the idea. And we're all impatient. Like we all want better testing, the players in particular, no one more than myself. I think that's, the integrity of the game is like priority number one, basically. But, nothing happens overnight. So, we'll keep pushing for it and hopefully it happens sooner rather than later, basically.
So let me ask you this: with paddle technology increasing, the big topic. In fact, I think Collin mentioned this, James Ignatowicz, about possibly using different paddles for the men's and the women's game.
Paddles or balls?
Paddles and balls. Mm-hmm. So for example, golf, for instance, women's golf balls have a different compression level than men's golf balls because obviously they don't swing as hard. What do you think about that for doing that for pickleball?
I think that's certainly a reasonable idea.
That'd get tricky because mixed doubles.
Yeah, so I think one of the best things you see in pickleball that people enjoy a lot is girls going head to head in like mixed doubles with guys and winning. Like people are very entertained by that. So I would certainly not be opposed to exacerbating that effect by guys having less powerful paddles. That would definitely make that effect more palpable. As far as paddles getting too powerful, there have been a number of girls, in particular girls, that have been like, we don't want to play against guys with these paddles because we're scared of getting hurt. Like 2 pro women have texted me that and been like, no, serious issue. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like that's really not a fun situation to be in when guys already hit hard and now it's coming really hard. So I feel like if you're going to play mixed doubles.
So I don't know if you want to say this or not, but is there any paddles out there at the moment that you think provide a significant advantage for certain players?
I feel like it's definitely, there's definitely some that do give a little bit of an advantage. But I wouldn't say there's any out there that I've been like, this is blatantly just worlds apart. I don't think all paddles should be the same. Companies have to have some room to innovate and, create as long as they're within the rules. So I'm more like, in general, an advocate of thorough and better testing. And if you can create better stuff that's better than other paddles with that thorough testing, then, more power to you. Go for it. So I'd focus more on the testing part and worried about the paddle.
I've been pretty adamant on my stance with the paddle gate, whatever you want to call it. Do you think it matters more in singles or doubles to have a delaminated paddle or powerful paddle, or is it the same for both?
Power wise, yeah, power wise, I'd say it's probably doubles, and spin wise, it's singles.
Interesting.
That's the opposite of what Tyler says.
I would say power in singles just because they're passing you, but I get your stance. I get your viewpoint.
Yeah. So the only reason I don't really say that is, and this is kind of personal experience, I've always preferred playing singles with thicker paddles, which allow for a little more spin and less power. And I still manage to pass people okay with that. Whereas doubles, it's kind of been the opposite effect. Like personally playing, you struggle with counter punches more, mostly when you have a thicker paddle, whereas the thinner one kind of power through everything. So when I think about power, I actually think about counter punching power more than I think about like ground stroke power, because you can generate ground stroke power just with a better swing mechanics. You can't really change your swing mechanics that much to get more power on a counter punch.
Jimmy was saying the paddle issue comes into almost more of a play when you're counter blocking balls. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. I think that the time where you see the most noticeable difference in power is when people are counter punching.
Okay.
You can say the initial attack, like wrist kind of flicks, especially from low, could be a little bit more surprising with powerful paddles, but I would say the counter punch is definitely tough. And certainly they come off at odd angles sometimes, especially high when people are late on them. And if it's high and hard, that's where you run into some danger issues a little bit.
Gotcha. All right, Jimmy, what other questions do we have?
So, Ben, I want to go MLP versus PPA. You've always been even the first Tour Wars, you were definitely PPA guy. This one, were you ever close on this one to switching to MLP?
As my agent said, we can always consider all options, but I wouldn't really consider myself close in any way. And really the reason for that is fundamentally I do believe in the tour format, which is, more like tennis. I just think it's a little more professional and a little less entertainment based. MLP is entertaining, no question. I think it is artificially that way, which is great for entertainment, great for spectators. And as a player, I don't appreciate that as much. I don't think it's quite as pure. That being said, I do enjoy playing it still very much. It presents different challenges, and that's great. And during the Tour Wars, I think the biggest question I had, my reservation.
Did you draft Erik Lange just to challenge yourself?
Do you disagree with that pick?
I would have taken Tardio, but you know.
No. In hindsight, I'd say anybody that looks at Tardio and sees how he's playing now, you can certainly say it was an Aaron pick, and I think Tardio is playing really well. I think my pick in that sense was whenever I've played against Tardio, I've never been super impressed against him.
Yeah.
But then when I watched him a little more, not playing myself, I was quite impressed, which unfortunately I only kind of got to see him play more after the draft. So if people want to think that's a mistake, I wouldn't debate with you. I'd say Tardio has a lot of upwards mobility to go, and he's already playing really well. So there's that, but can't draft perfectly, unfortunately. But where were we? Tour Wars, right?
Yeah. Sorry.
My other big reservation was that I knew a little more about the finances of MLP than I guess most players did, and not having a revenue model was a little disturbing. You can sell teams for a lot of money, and that's great, and you can have a lot of legit people invested, but you can't sell teams forever. You need a revenue model. I think any person in business knows that, and there didn't appear to be one. So I was like, you can have somebody that is a benevolent, altruistic kind of person that loves pickleball, that has a lot of money, always invest more and fund it, right? But I definitely believe in the stability of having a good revenue model a little more, and that was worrying enough for me to not get close to that.
So why do you think though 80 whatever percent of the top 100 went MLP over PPA? this is a sincere question, but do you think that they're sick of losing to you? Do you think that, like, I mean this sincerely, because there are rumors out there that one of Riley's comments was he was tired of being number 2.
Yeah, well, no, I can't really speak to all the pros. I don't want to generalize. I feel like there's definitely a variety. Some legitimately enjoy the team format more, and that's, personal preference.
Yeah.
I think some simply got a better money offer, and, you can't blame them when somebody's going to offer them, more money for playing that. Like, I basically told like 6 or 7 pros asked me during the whole thing, like, hey, what should I do? And I said, do whatever's best for you. Like, I'm going to be where I'm going to be, but I'm not going to sway you either way. Cause I think as a player, you should do what's best for you. I'd say that's another reason, of course. Sick of losing. I feel like most people are good competitors and they don't like losing. And that's why they want to keep playing against the people they're losing to. They want to, they win, they want to do better. At least that's what I hope it is. And then I'd say there's maybe a small subset that wanted more of what I'd call the cushy competition. You're diffusing over the team format skill. You don't have to work as hard. It's almost like what you see in the NBA, which is, these guys sometimes it's younger guys, they get signed to a big contract and then they kind of let their team do the work and they stop working as hard, right? Like it happens in a lot of team sports. And that's just how it is. Like, and I don't blame people for feeling that way. It's not how I would personally be. Like, I'd rather work hard and, reap what I however hard I work, that's what I get out of it, right? Those are the benefits.
Do you anticipate that happening? Do you anticipate that happening now? I've told Tyler I think that's going to happen with these big contracts, that some of these players, this will be their last deal because they're going to.
Some undoubtedly will. The human nature is that inevitably happens when people get comfortable and it's a cushy lifestyle. It can't not happen to some people. And I think others will work just as hard as ever, if not harder, because that's more how they're wired. But yeah, there's going to be a little bit of both.
There's going to be the people that just get the penthouse at the Monarch and call it a day.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's interesting just how pickleball developed in that you had a lot of money with these slightly longer term deals in a sport where it changes very quickly. It was just kind of a bit of a bad recipe for player development. And I don't think by any means that we've seen yet what players are going to be, more cushy and which ones are gonna keep trying to work hard. It's almost impossible to say that, but we'll probably see that in 3 years at the conclusion.
So what's your ideal? Because one of Tyler's arguments is that MLP is fun. He agrees with you. In fact, I'd say you guys are pretty aligned on this, but too many MLP events takes away
the novelty.
The novelty of it takes away. So what's your ideal number on MLP events? Like if you were the commissioner.
Yeah, well, there's 2 answers to that question. One, I think the format is not what I would do at all if I were the commissioner. I would switch it to more of a Monday night football, Tuesday night football type of thing. And I'd have, a team match on Monday and a team match on Tuesday every week out of the year. Make it a weekly thing that people can tune into and more virtual. I think you could start up a good revenue model very quickly like that. I don't think you're going to make a lot of money at these big events where you're spending a ton of money and you're also wasting a bunch of content. You're having all these teams, like 24 teams, play, and most people aren't watching most of those matches. Like, why waste content? If you want more content, spread it out more. And I would save a lot of money by, not doing these huge events. I think there's a lot of advantages in that. So in that sense, I think it's better for players too. Like if you have a team that plays once every, whatever it is, a match every, I guess it'd be 6 weeks and only one match for the year. That seems much better than 6 events where you pack it all in.
Yeah. Well, some of the scheduling rumors are that they will have them bookend the beginning or the end of tour events and not all teams will play. So
yes. Yeah. I've heard that. I think they're juggling around a lot of different scenarios that but they're trying to see what, but I think.
What are your thoughts on rally scoring?
Rally scoring. So I do prefer normal scoring, but I also understand how rally scoring is a little bit more engaging with your people that are kind of just getting into it. As a player, I really don't care that much because I think you can just adapt to whatever. they both have their pitfalls, so to speak. And as a player, your job is to adapt to any condition, whether it's wind, indoor, outdoor, or conditions, court, whatever. And scoring is just kind of another one of those. So the better player you are, the more you're going to be able to adapt to a different format.
But do you think rally scoring, Tyler is a firm believer, even though the stats disagree, that the underdog has a better chance in rally scoring?
I'd say without a doubt that they do.
Boom.
Take that, Tim Parks.
Tim Parks claims that it's 89% side out scoring, 91% rally scoring.
No, other way around.
Oh, other way around. Yeah. Sorry.
91% of the time, the better team will win in traditional scoring. And then he claims that they've run a bunch of models or data analysis where 89% of the time, the better team will still win in rally scoring.
So it's not that big of a difference.
I don't think it's as large of a difference as a lot of people do. I feel like people say, rally is a coin flip, and in regular scoring, the better team almost always wins. Like, it's not that drastic. I believe it's less drastic than most people think. Yeah. I would like to see what kind of simulations they ran though, and kind of on how big of favorites and like what all you did. Because 2% does seem a little small. I push it up a little more than that, but it's definitely not drastic. I do feel like the better team usually overrides. It just looks close because the score is always, quite literally close. But you also got to consider, when these better teams get up 1 or 2 points, they can usually kind of hold serve, so to speak, from tennis, but in the reverse, and usually carry that to a win. And that's why the better team usually still does win, I think. It just looks close because the score makes it artificially close, but not as close as people think, because getting that break is actually quite difficult.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I would agree.
Do you do you think the future of the sport's still traditional scoring? Or do you think it's easier, like for amateurs? I mean, at some point, maybe do you see amateurs play rally scoring and then pros play traditional, or?
Honestly, I think people maybe get a little too wrapped up in it. I think you can proceed with scoring either way and it's going to be successful. I don't think either one is the future. I think either one can be perfectly successful, and it doesn't matter nearly as much as people think. Like, tennis got away with this stupid love, 15 love, 30 love. Like, that sounds ridiculous too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was saying, if PPA switched over to rally scoring for, let's call it 10 tournaments, let's say in traditional scoring, you and Collin would win 9 out of those 10 tournaments. I would imagine if it was rally scoring, that number would not be 9 out of 10.
But Ben's saying it would, because he's not going to change his game. He'll adapt because he's Ben effing Johns.
You certainly need to adapt, but yeah, the percentages, I'd say if it was 9 out of 10 for us before, it might be 7 or 8. I put it at 7.5.
Okay. So, Ben, here's my question. So pickleball is in its infancy still. I mean, it's pro pickleball, we'll say, is in its infancy, right? And there's a lot of talk that people, they get bored of seeing you and Collin, of you and Annalie, of you and singles, although singles, it seems like other, people can get hot. My opinion is, I think that in other sports, for example, when Tiger Woods was chasing Jack Nicklaus, right? Everybody was rooting for Tiger Woods because they want to see history made. Where you're at currently is you're kind of setting the standard because there wasn't one to begin with. And so I actually think that you are actually, oddly enough, underrated, because it's kind of weird to say, but because nobody realizes what you're doing or how great this is going to be, 10 years down the road, right? Like you've said that you don't want to play past 30. Is that still the case? Like, that's not, you want to do other things. So, 10 years from now, right? Like, what does it look like? Are people going to look back and be like, dude, Ben Johns was better than we thought? Because people, like, the crazy thing is people are rooting against you. They want to see you lose. Not saying everybody, but there is a good portion of fans that root against you.
Yeah, no, I get it. I don't think many people rooted for the Warriors when they were trying to get their three-peat either.
Yeah, exactly. Look at like Michael Jordan, right? How many people were MJ fans during the run compared to how many people are MJ fans now, right?
Yeah, really how I think of it is, how many fans are engaged because they want to see you lose or win. It's like you watch to see the result, whether it's win or lose. That's what I want. That's what gets people interested. When it gets to the point where they don't care whether you win or lose, that's a much bigger problem, right? Win or lose, that's as long as you're watching, that's a great thing.
That's a Taylor Swift song, right? Indifference.
Not sure. I'm not a huge Swiftie, but
I thought you went to a Swiftie concert.
Ben.
No, that wasn't me. My sisters went. I know Anna Bright went during, so not me. Not that I would go to a concert if it was the right venue. But to your question, Jimmy, as far as kind of looking back in the future, it is hard to say how much the sport will develop, and kind of how you look back on the original players. Like, do you go, oh, they were actually pretty good for their time? They really developed the sport, and they set the tone, set the standard, all that. Or they look back on how we look back on some sports, like I don't know, even tennis has a little bit of that, where they're like, come on, those players were horrible compared to now's players. It's not even close, right? Hard to say where that will be, but I'd assume that for myself and for some other players, it'll look somewhat like the best analogy I can draw is actually basketball again, like a Wilt Chamberlain type of thing. Like, he set records that seem obscene now, but he did it in a time, of course, where it was much easier to do so. So, if I set records, then it's.
Have you ever looked at Wilt Chamberlain clips on YouTube?
I actually have not.
I mean, he's terrible. Like, he looks awful. Like, he can't. There's a video. There's a video of him dribbling, and it's like the most awkward, goofy thing in the world. And so you watch that, and I'm like, okay, well, yeah, this guy was
the best. The best of the time.
This guy dropped 100 points in a game. Like, he was putting up these stat lines.
He was a man children, basically.
It's like, who's he playing against?
Somebody's going to look at my singles game in 10 years and go like, bro, this guy would only chip backhands. He didn't even have a two-handed backhand. Like, why was he winning? What is going on?
Yeah.
I think that'll definitely happen. You'll get much more athletic players, much more well-rounded players, and just the right combination of speed and agility and power and all that stuff. It's going to balance out into something that is more ideal for pickleball. I think the best that any player can do right now is, almost explore the game and set new strategies and figure stuff out to pave the way for other players figuring even more out and being better in their future, right? As long as we can push the game forward, then more players will be better in the future as well.
But do you ever get sick of the wait till the D1 tennis players come and all these tennis players and like
I just think it's funny. I just think it's funny because I'm like I'm not going to debate with anybody that says that. I'm like, well, we have former ATP players and some pretty high level D1 players, and they're good. But what I've always said with tennis is that you have the potential to be extremely good, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be really good. It's just some people transfer well and some people don't. But of course, if I'm going to train somebody to be the best ever, then I'm going to pick somebody like a Jack Sock, right? Like it just seems to transfer very well. You got a quick wrist, you're athletic, and all that stuff. Like, you want that right background. It's just, it's never a guarantee. It's basically it.
But that's like that's always the argument, right? Like, oh, Ben's going to be number one until these tennis players. And now that there's more money in the sport, and there's, the Bryan brothers is the rumor now that they want to come over, right? Like, all these former tennis players. Like, are we going to see the Bryan brothers versus the Johns brothers in 2024 in a,
I hope so. That'd be really entertaining. I grew up watching them play doubles together.
But you would smash them. Like, they're gonna not make out of qualifiers. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah, no, they'll get smashed for a while. And I think they're definitely a little bit.
Ben knows.
So it would be interesting to see what would happen, but they would certainly get smashed for a while. And also, it's not really about wait till the D1 tennis players come, as in like they haven't come. It's more like you want more depth, right?
Yeah.
Depth is really the big thing that tennis has that pickleball doesn't. So yeah, if I could infuse 100, good D1 tennis players and train them in pickleball for a year or two, pickleball would look drastically different. You'd have much more widely varying results because you're playing a really good, well-developed player every round. And that has a much higher chance to beat you. Whereas right now it's not happening until like, the quarterfinals or something. So it's almost like practically doubling your chances of losing.
Yeah. I mean, it would definitely make every round much more exciting. Right. I mean, yeah.
And the more pros you're around that are good, the faster each pro generally improves.
Yes, exactly. And that's going to push you, right? You seem to always be working on something to improve your game, right? Something new, some new trick. Tyler just started drilling after 8 years.
Just discovered it.
He just learned about it.
Yeah, it's a new thing for him.
Yeah.
He did drill when he was a pioneer. He just hit that backhand, baby.
Exactly.
Chip.
He knew his role. He was the Collin Johns. He knew his role with the Pioneers.
I had an Ernie. I have the Ernie.
Yeah, he knew his role. What are you working on now? Is there anything specific, Ben, that you're working on? You got a new shot in the bag, or you?
Yeah, no, I'm working on a number of things. I definitely feel like I thrive more under more competition and being around more players, both because they push me to work harder and also because they inspire me to try things that they're good at. So I guess the one that I'm practicing like 3 things right now, but the one I can think of that would be kind of taken from other players is, you know how Annalie and Connor Garnett both hit like a half volley 2-handed backhand outside of the ball with a little bit of topspin?
Yes.
I'm trying to get that.
Connor Garnett's 2-handed backhand is disgusting.
It's filthy. I can't mimic the actual ground stroke, but I like his half volley one because it's pretty stable, but it's almost like Annalie hits it probably even better. Like she hits it low as a half volley with some topspin and like just bunts it, controls it really well in some awkward positions.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want that for singles. Like most of the stuff I practice is usually more for singles and I adapt it to doubles afterwards.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What events do you train most for, singles or doubles?
I'd say training wise, like every practice day, I'm usually putting in time on stuff that would be considered, I'd be practicing both, but I'd say I practice more intensively for singles. And that's because I think a lot of the stuff you do in doubles doesn't transfer really well to singles, but the same isn't true vice versa. Like I can. Are you actually on the
court practicing singles, or is this more in the gym?
This is all on the court, like court stuff. Gym's a separate thing. I'd say the gym is more general stuff, like power, explosiveness that can definitely apply to both. It probably applies to singles a little bit more. But yeah, single stuff on the court, I feel like when you add single stuff to your doubles game, it can really give people a hard time because they don't often see it if they don't play singles. Whereas if you do double stuff in singles, it can work against singles players, but there's more freedom to do some other stuff to counter it, kind of, that diffuses it. So I prefer to practice more singles, kind of intensive stuff to transfer to both things.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, clearly you're a competitor. You are a student of the game. Do you ever want to play against Annalie instead of having a walkover every mixed tournament?
Well, I do get to play against her. I got to play against her at MLP, which I do enjoy very much.
But what about PPA? I mean, we got 30 tournaments a year that we can chalk up who our mixed doubles gold medalists are.
See, I love competing and I love playing against Annalie, no doubt. But what I love more than that, Jimmy, is winning.
You could win without her.
I'm never going to increase my chances of winning. I could definitely do it, but it would be much harder. And I don't want to make it that much harder on
Ben
myself.
John's taking the easy way out.
That's right. Yeah, you heard it here.
I mean, I don't listen. Nobody blames you for that.
Ben John takes the easy way out. That's a title right there.
That's it. Well, that's going to be the title of the podcast. Ben Johns takes the easy way out. Okay, let me ask you this: Who wins? Ben Johns and Collin Johns, or Ben Johns and Dylan Frazier?
It would be me and Collin. I think Dylan's a great right side player. It's basically Collin, Dylan, Matt. I think everyone knows the top 3 right side players. Dylan would have to get used to playing with me. I think JW's similar, but there's enough differences to where it would be. He would need some time to adjust, and I need some time to adjust to him for sure as well.
Do you think if you guys trained together, you'd be better than you and Collin?
I don't think so. There's a couple of reasons for that. I could easily be wrong. It's only theory really. And it's hard to say how good he could be with training with me. Like sometimes people just mesh together really well and they're much better than you expected. But I tend towards thinking no. I think Collin actually defends me really well, which is partially because he plays with me a lot and sees it a lot. But I think his game is actually pretty suited to defending what I do.
I mean, Collin has sacrificed his mixed career to be your partner.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
a good brother.
That is a great brother. He's definitely not selfish. We built him from the ground up to be a right side player and have skill sets that were for the right side. And we never really even talked about mix. We never tried to practice it until probably
it's clear. It's obvious.
Until in the past year or two, I was like, hey, it's not like, yeah, you're not good at it, but it's not that you can't be. Like, we can work on a couple of things and make you a lot better very quickly. And last tournament, he had some bad loss, and he was just like, none of the stuff I do well transfers to mixed doubles at all. Work so hard, and none of it transfers. It was just so funny. I was just cracking up. I was like, we can work on stuff to make you better, but you are right. Nothing you do well actually does well in mixed doubles. I was like, okay, first thing you need to do, stop blocking. You just can't block. Because what happens is when you block, the guy comes over and he attacks your girl, and then, you lose the point, and then he gets frustrated. He's like, I hit a great block. I was like, it doesn't matter. You're going to get your partner lit up. I was like, start hitting counter punches. I don't care if you're 2 feet inside the baseline. I don't want to see you hit another block for a year. Just hit it hard. And I was like, you have a great drive. You can move well. So drive and crash and move and, do all that stuff that you don't do in men's doubles.
He's got great facial expressions. Incredible.
It's pretty priceless. I do enjoy them. That's why I like that double.
Dylan J-Dub, that last tournament, those first 2 games, what were there? 48 net courts? Those first 2 games.
Enough to make him mad. Enough to make me irritated, actually, which is usually that doesn't happen. But it was enough to make me irritated. And I would say, a lot of people think the frustration is maybe misplaced, and I always gotta give credit, like more credit than Collin, which is if you're playing with low margin, you're hitting attacks that are very low to the net, you're gonna get more net cords, and to some extent they are good shots. So I don't say like, oh, you guys were so lucky, that's why you got such a point or game or whatever. It's more like, hey, you're hitting good shots, you're hitting low margin, good for you. It's still frustrating in game, frustration clearly, but I don't call it lucky.
Yeah, for sure, but it still is. It can still be frustrating when you're sitting on a ball and it freaking ricochets and hits you in the neck.
Yeah. The one that got me, I think I got frustrated when Dylan flipped the ball with his forehand off the bounce that was going up. I had my backhand up here to counter it. It hits, clips the net, goes above my palm, and then hits me in the chest. I'm like, that's just so humiliating. Gosh darn it. It hits me directly in the middle of the chest. There's just something about that where it just gets me.
So are we 2024? You're not changing anything up. You and Collin, you and Annalie, right?
Yeah.
If it's not broken. Yep. If it's not broke, don't fix it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you feel
unless Tyler develops a 2-handed backhand dink or something, then I might just eye that like, ooh, that looks pretty. I don't know.
You should see it. You'd be impressed. Maybe.
Thing of beauty.
Yeah.
Do you still believe though lefty righty is the future?
Yeah, no question.
But there's only 3 good lefties?
4 lefties.
How many lefties are there right now? 3 probably that are.
There's a lot more lefties in the game, but
Rafa, Pablo,
you're forgetting Althoff. You're forgetting Rob Cassidy.
I forgot them up for a reason. CJ Klinger's coming up.
Yeah. I don't know how old he is. He's going to grow even more, but a long lefty is definitely difficult to handle.
Would you have picked me if I was still available for your round in MLP?
Of course.
No, Ben,
don't
be
fix
honest.
what isn't broken.
Ben, be honest. You would have taken Erik Lange still.
Incorrect.
So he would have been gone. He would have been taken.
You think?
I don't know. Probably.
I told Erik, he was basically, lobbying for me to draft him. And I was like, well, if I gave him 3 players. I was like, if any of these players are still on the board, I'm taking them over you, just to let you know. Tyler was one of them. I didn't think you were going to get to me because usually, if you win some MLPs, you get a little bit of an inflated draft stock and you go earlier. So I was like, there's no way he's getting to my pick. I think I mentioned AJ as well. If AJ gets to me, I would obviously take AJ over you.
Yeah. AJ went right before, right?
Yeah, that was shockingly late. And what's funny is they so long with that draft pick. I almost was like, are they going to pass? That's crazy. What are you doing? That's a snap pick.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk MLP preview real quick. So you guys, your group is loaded. 3 playoff teams, right? You've got the squeeze in your group. You've got is Dallas in your Dallas? I think.
I think it's the Ranchers.
Oh, the Ranchers. That's it.
Who's the other playoff team? Is it? It's not Miami, is it?
No.
Is it DC?
It's the Ranchers. I've got it. I'll look it up. But
Oh, it's Arizona.
The Drive.
It's
that's
Drive.
it. So yeah, three playoff teams. How you feeling about that? Like you.
Tough.
Have you ever not made the playoffs in MLP?
No.
So you got a little streak on the line here.
Yeah, I think it was semis, win, quarters.
And that semis, you guys lost in the Dream Breaker, right?
To the Hustlers, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That was the Tyler.
Yeah, somehow our losses usually are Dream Breakers.
That's true.
Yeah.
Do you like?
I don't think we've only ever lost one team match that wasn't a Dream Breaker, and it was in the super final.
Oh,
Yeah, that was we need to forget
Ben,
about that.
what
sorry.
happened? Ben,
Both just like
hey, what happened in
I'm
that?
Hey, everyone says I choked,
no.
and I'll admit I did not play good at all, but I only played one match.
And
we lost.
Wait, you're putting this on Ben?
No, I'm not
Yours
putting it on
truly
Ben, but I'm
played
putting it
two
on
matches
everybody
and
else who
lost.
say, "Oh, I choked." I only played one match.
So Megan Dazan gets mad at me for bringing this up. She won't. She gets pissed and tells me to never bring it up again. But what happened in that super finals? Like, is it just a bad day?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were definitely a little in an interesting mind state after winning, and it was almost like you celebrate and then you felt like you won, and then you went back and played the next day. It definitely felt a little odd. And the Fives came out with, or sorry, not the Fives, the
Mad Drops.
The Mad Drops came out with a good game plan, and they came out very aggressive, and they wanted it really badly. And I think you can always tell in almost any sport when a team really wants something and they're willing to do anything, and the other team's just kind of low energy. Usually doesn't go well for the low energy team, and that was really as simple as that. I think it was almost kind of one-way traffic, one team being aggressive and the other team was just passive. I think the girls play their best when they're both aggressive, and they just felt like they are having a lot of pressure put on them. And then obviously we lost men's in a tight one, which I felt like we gave a lead away a little bit. Still felt confident about that one, but just too many points right at the end. That's how that format goes, just a little bit. And then mixed doubles, I know Edda hadn't seen Catherine's ball before, and I think what we struggled with there was that Edda hadn't seen really heavy roll dinks on the forehand into what she was used to doing, which just mechanically was a bit of an issue.
That makes sense.
Were there any matches that stand out that you remember that were good or fun from our season 1 of this year?
Season 1 of this year
with Pioneers.
He's actually blocked that out.
Our team matches or me and you specifically?
I don't know, just with Pioneers. With
he
us.
wants to know if he played well. Ben.
Yeah.
Did Tyler play well?
Yeah, I think the final against the Fives was pretty awesome.
That was fun.
We had some good matches, and the Dream Breaker obviously was a shocker to everybody. And there were
that's
a number
when
of
Ben went all mastermind. He orchestrated everything.
That was the Tyler versus Annalie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one.
And I had asked Ben, I said, would you have put me out in the order that I was out regardless, or was it specifically to be put up against Annalie? Because we were reacting to their lineup. And what did you say, Ben?
It was just matchup based.
It was matchup based. So wherever Annalie was, he was going to put me against her.
That's why he's the GOAT. That's why he's the GOAT for 10 years. And then somebody else comes along.
Easy to call a strategy decision a good decision after it succeeds.
Yeah, of course.
Or it could have gone easily very badly, and everyone would be like, what an idiot.
Yeah, of course. Do you who's somebody, Ben, who are some players that you think are like the future of the sport? Do you see any up and comers that
yeah, I guess people always define up and comers differently, but one of my favorite players is definitely Edda. I think she's got a very powerful frame. She has easy power, which you can't really teach that. I like how she moves on the court, not really specifically quickly, but how she covers the court is definitely interesting to me in women's doubles. And certainly mixed doubles as well. So I'm very high on her and her ceiling. I think she hasn't even been playing that long, and she can still do some stuff. But soft hands plus powerful hands, I'm always a big proponent of that. So on the women's side, I'd give the nod to Edda.
did you know Edda was my discovery, Ben?
I didn't. How was it? Was it you?
He calls everybody his discovery.
Megan was my discovery. Edda was my discovery. True. No, not really. But true story. Etta, one time we had, it was like 2 years ago. We had 3 people and we were looking for a 4th person. I literally posted on Facebook that we needed a 4th and Etta shows up and she just had a baby and she said, oh, I played a little bit of pickleball, but I haven't played a ton. And she comes out and just crushes. And I was like, who is this girl? And she just crushed it. Yeah.
What I love about Etta, she's just the sweetest, nicest person in the world.
She's so quiet.
And then at the same time, she gets in the court and you can see just like it really matters. She's a killer. Like she's 100%. Still on the court.
She is a freaking stone cold killer.
It's amazing. So I really like her game. And then I can't really think of a men's doubles one, so I'll go with the singles one. I really like the way the Kwang Dong plays, the Avatar ball bender.
Yeah, is that interesting.
His name or something. I really do like the way he plays. I think he's very quick.
And this is more for singles, or is this doubles as well?
This is just singles. I couldn't think of a doubles player, so I went with the singles player. I think he's got a very high ceiling just because of, he plays with a lot of spin. He plays with a little more low margin than most people. And I think obviously if you play with a low margin, you have a very high ceiling. So I like his ball striking.
You've played him a couple times and you have not had any issues with him.
3 times. Yeah, I've played him. No, didn't have issues, but I would also say I played him in the heat all 3 times. I feel like he'd be better in more crisp environment.
Interesting.
The heat is a struggle for anybody that plays with a big ball. But whenever you play with a low margin, especially in singles, if you can do it well, if you have good ball striking, which he does, then you have a very high ceiling, I think.
Ben, do you not play indoor anymore because you lost to Spencer Smith at TOC?
No. It's something that most people don't know, but I have eye damage from when I was 9 in one eye. So I actually can't really see very well indoors. So I just don't.
So if we want to get rid of Ben, just move all the tournaments to indoors and done. He's not signing up.
Yeah. It's not a huge difference. If it's nice lighting, like if it's really good lighting, then it's not really an issue. Basically, the doctor said, you have nerve damage and spotty lighting that's slightly dark in places, you'll struggle with depth perception. I was like, yeah, that's what I've experienced, so that checks out.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
What are your thoughts on protection glasses?
I guess it depends on, how powerful the paddles are we all going to be playing with. If you're all playing with, the average paddle today, you can probably be fine without them. But if everyone's playing with 002s or better, then you should probably be wearing them. I don't really like wearing them because I don't like rims. It messes with me, but I'm sure I could get used to it.
Do you think it slows you down? Tyler thinks it slows down your reaction speed.
Maybe a little bit.
Slows you down.
That's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous
No, it's
comment.
actually not ridiculous because it's passing through the lens. And so scientifically, it's going to be slower. What you're perceiving is 100% slower. I promise you.
Ben?
I mean, that's good.
Give us your take on this.
My ball tracking is slower. How about that? A little middle ground for you guys.
With the glasses on?
Yes. The rims can definitely hurt my depth perception and kind of how you see the ball peripherally.
No, I was saying it more tongue in cheek, but I think if somebody knows that they're being protected, like if they're wearing a helmet, they're more likely to do crazy stuff because they know they're being protected. And so,
yeah, it's like, baseball batters in the box wearing a bunch of pads. It's like, you're not scared anymore.
Exactly. But if you have that knowledge that, hey, I might get hit in the face or something, I'm going to be super ready.
That's fair.
Yeah. That's why people get jumpy when you take the big swing and you almost like, you got occasionally, like they get jumpy. If you have the glasses on, you probably don't care that much.
Exactly.
You just stand in there and take it. Ben, I saw your first pitch at Wrigley. You clearly played baseball growing up.
Yeah, I stopped pitching in high school when I was 16.
Okay, that makes sense. Because
honestly, what I was afraid of slipping. I wasn't wearing spikes.
Yeah,
I wasn't wearing spikes, so I was like, okay, just whatever you do not slip and fall, or you'll be all over whatever social media tomorrow.
No, it looked good. Like you look like, you can tell. Like it didn't look like 50 Cent where he like threw it 90 feet left and it rolled.
That was hilarious.
Like that one was the best. That was so good. Baseball was my first sport growing up, so I pitched from a very young age, and I stopped because I had elbow problems. But I loved it, and I did a lot of it, and it was great.
And so going back way beginning, you started when you were 14 years old, pickleball, right?
No, I first picked up a paddle when I was 16, almost 17. So I picked up a paddle in February of 2016, and I played the U.S. Open, the first U.S. Open ever in 2016, in April, 2 months later. So that was my first tournament, and I think I played 2 more that year, and I started playing like a lot in 2017.
You hooked me up with Craig Jones, who I go and stay with every time I go to Naples, Florida. Is that where you started at those courts there in Florida?
That community. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He hooked me up with a host family, and how old is he? 70 years old?
Not sure, but he was one of the local guys that played in my community when I first started. So that was 2016.
He's like my best friend now.
Really?
Yeah.
17. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a good dude. Who are some of those OGs, Ben? Like, are there some OGs that you maybe modeled your game after, or you watched, or?
I modeled my game after everybody, man. Like, there's so many shots from so many people. Like, I'm a Frankenstein put together by other players. But out of the OGs that I got a lot of stuff from would be Kyle, for sure. I definitely got a lot of stuff from him. The forehand wind up, the inside out forehand, the close with a backhand through the court after hitting a drop kind of quickly. It's almost like a fake close. There's a ton of stuff from him. Learned some stuff from Wes Gabrielson, the two-handed dig, like using two hands when you're trying to play defense. That was from Wes Gabrielson. How I play in midcourt, which admittedly is still not good. I mostly got from Simone. I got a lot of strokes from Simone, like just how she moved, and her strokes in general were really clean and crisp. So I tried to use some of those. And I never really do stuff as well as how other people do it. But, if I have 90% of how well they do their good things, then it puts together a decent player.
Like you see a shot used against you and you're like, okay, I want to figure that out. That was sick.
Yeah, it's usually the shot that they are best at, or one of their best ones, or it's unique, or it gives other people problems. Usually it's kind of what people associate as like their signature shot, so to speak. And if you take some signature shot and can make it even.
Tell us your best Miller story. Mills Miller.
What?
Your best Mills Miller story.
Best Mills Miller story. Oh yeah, okay, sure. So I was in charge we played a tournament in Golden State area. Jordan Briones hosted that tournament, actually, if you guys remember Jordan. And we got a B&B with probably like 6-7 people. There were a lot of OGs there, and Mills was one of them. And unfortunately, he had the one room in the house that didn't have AC, and he was so miserable the whole time. Like every night, he'd just be sweating. Come out in the morning looking all like red eyes, like this place doesn't have any AC. Who booked this? And I swear to this day, he will not go into an Airbnb that I booked. He's like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. I had a horrible 4 nights at this one tournament, and I'm never doing it again. So Bill still gives me some shit about that. But it was just so funny how bad of a time he had because he didn't have a room with AC.
Miller is great. Most people, the new people, they don't know who he is, but he is great. He is a legend of the game.
Mills is the man. Yeah. Every time I see him, Mills, you're back. It's just always entertaining with him around.
He's a nomad, dude. He splits his time. He doesn't even know where he's sleeping in a week. Doesn't know where he goes sleeping, in between San Diego and Washington.
Yeah, he's like the original couch surfer of pickleball.
Yeah. Yeah, he was doing this when he was like 20 years old. He was traveling across the country, playing in these tournaments without any prize money, without any of that, all for competition, all for winning. Insane.
Mm-hmm. That's a true competitor right there, not playing for any money.
Yeah, that's a guy that's not going to choose Annalee just to have a walkthrough.
You're right about that. Mills is a better man than I am. I will say that right now.
This guy.
Awesome. Anything else, Jimmy?
No. Ben, when are you gonna revamp a podcast?
Well, I just feel like everybody has a podcast now, so it's just not the cool thing to do anymore.
But you start like you had the OG one.
I know, yeah, but I don't even surf like social media anymore. The only thing I do is look at YouTube occasionally. And I will say this: out of all the podcasts, I do not watch any podcasts except like clips from yours.
Let's go.
I'll give you that. Yeah. But yeah, no, I don't think that's,
so did you just give your username and password to your media manager, and they just do all your posts? I love the inspirational quotes and everything like that.
No, but you tweet yourself, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, to be fair, all the content I do with
Let's
her,
talk about this.
Quotes and stuff, like I provide her with the appropriate stuff. And of course she films and does a bunch of other stuff as well that's not directly me. So it's still me. It's just I'm not the one doing it. And more importantly, like even if I was the one doing it, the important part is I just don't think it's a good use of time, especially for like athletes and competitors to be just surfing social media. Like it personally for me,
you're missing out. There's a ton of personalities out there in the interspace.
Hey, he watches our clips though.
No, there we go.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, we're kind of jumping around, but you said most likely you won't be competing after age 30. What would you be doing after then?
I don't really have a definitive answer. I'll see where these next 4, 5, 6 years take me. I have a lot of interests, and honestly,
do you want to stay around pickleball, or are you kind of moving on?
Probably not. Yeah, I would like to be in pickleball in maybe from a distance. I probably would not be directly involved. I just don't really love doing the same thing unless I really.
But you're still getting royalties from Yola, so that's fine.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, I guess I am partially involved forever. But it could be. Maybe I get into venture capital. I feel like I've met a lot of cool venture capital people through pickleball because there's just naturally a lot of those types of people. Maybe I do some R&D engineering design for Yola, or maybe I do it for an entire different company and not even in a sport. So could do anything really. We'll see.
What if the money is just so big at that point?
Yeah. Well, I would say, if you take money kind of out of the equation, then I'd put my career on, say, 4 more years. And I'd say if the money's really good, it'll bring me up to something more like, 6 to where I get to the age of 30 or something. And if it's still that good and I'm still really good, I'd be shocked. I shouldn't be the best player in 6 years. Like that'd be a long time.
But don't you think the pickleball, like the lifespan for pickleball players is longer than other sports? At least right now. Well,
yeah, but it's also battling with new players coming in. I think naturally new players will be better and better, and there's going to be more depth, and naturally that will make it harder for anybody to win, let alone dominate. And I feel like after kind of my experience in pickleball and everything that I've done, it's definitely going to be hard to always have the motivation to say, I'm 5th in the world or something. It's going to be hard to have the motivation.
When you do lose, do you get down, or does it motivate you, or do you just not even remember it?
Yeah, it's both. I'd say it really hits hard for the day that I lose, and I probably think about it a little bit off and on for, say, a week. It's not so down to the point of, really detrimenting your life enjoyment or anything. It's more just like, oh, that really sucked, and now we're moving on and we're coming to terms with it. I remember
I was at a tournament and you had an early exit that tournament. It was a massive upset. And I mean, after that match, you were gone, just gone.
Which upset?
Super quick. Yeah.
Well, just so you know, when we were drafting the Black Bears, we had lots of players reach out and, tell us why we should pick them. And one of these players, Philip Locklear, literally sent one sentence that said, "I beat Ben Johns."
Yeah, I remember that match. I did leave early after that one.
Did you? Let me ask you.
I always struggle.
Did you ever
with
watch Austin Gridley's video on how to beat the Johns brothers?
I can't say I did, but I will say
we'll send you the link.
Okay, I'll bear that in mind. I'll watch that later. But I remember Philip playing really well that match. He wasn't missing his drops, and they were really good, and his speed ups were working. And Benny was just being Benny, and I always struggle with whatever he does. So, yeah, that was an upset. That's a good resume. It didn't work though.
I mean, it didn't work. We didn't take him, but it was compelling. It was a compelling argument.
You might not want to say this, but I think you will. What type of team do you see yourself losing to? What do you, is it the shake and bakes? Is it the patience? Is it the drives?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I've said it before, so yeah, I don't mind saying it again. I think a aggressive shake and bake righty lefty team with a really good lefty would be the team I would craft to beat us. I think shake and bake gives you a few more runs of points. It's a little more sporadic, a little more random, and it can be tough to get in a zone when they're playing that aggressively. And I think what lefties have kind of yet to develop is we haven't seen enough lefties that have a really good like reach in, backhand roll out of the air or play very aggressively in the middle.
You haven't seen me the past 2 months. Watch yourself.
Yeah, it's going to be a thing of beauty once we come back. And they're like, it's a whole new Tyler. After 8 years, he's got it.
I'm telling everybody, 2024.
Yeah, so like a good example is Pablo, right? Like he does flick the backhand out of the air, and it's somewhat limited in the spots he goes, and he's not super aggressive with the forehand out of the air. So you can kind of see glimpses of what a really aggressive lefty would look like, and it's definitely kind of a scary thought with the righty. So yeah, the team I would craft is two aggressive righty lefties.
Cool. Anything else?
No, I mean,
okay.
Listen,
how are you looking
going on the
this
podcast? Wait, say that again.
Are you confident in your Black Bears going into this next event? How do you feel?
Yeah, I think we're good. I think our women are the best in Challenger. I think Anderson Scarpa was steady Eddie for us in men's. And then, Pilette's a guy that not a lot of people know about. He doesn't play a ton of tournaments, but he plays with that Los Cabs crew with the Brashas and Hayden and they're all super high on him. So we'll see. We'll see if he, we had Marshall Brown before. He was solid, but he, people talk about the stats. So Real Clear Stats said basically we made a mistake dropping him because so this is a good question for Ben, because he had 1 out of every 50 shots was an unforced error. So we had the lowest unforced error percentage in all of Challenger.
It's an odd stat.
He was also, but he was very, very conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And so he got attacked.
Entirely depends on the type of role he's supposed to be fulfilling. Like it's not going to work with some people and it's going to work fine with other people. If he's playing with me, then yeah, I'd like that. But if he's supposed to be a playmaker, or you need a good mixed doubles player, that's probably not going to be the player you want. So it's all very role based.
Yeah, exactly. And we felt like Pilette's a better mixed doubles player. He's more aggressive. And yeah, I think Marshall went 1-4 in mixed doubles, something like that.
Yeah, so, I think a better do in tennis is actually they take your unforced errors and they combine it with your as like unforced errors are a negative and your winners are a positive. And by winners, we'll say speed up success. For instance, like what is your count in terms of are you +5, are you -5, that kind of thing. So Collin, for instance, will usually be like 2 successful speed ups, 1 unforced error. So he's at like +1, albeit like 15 successful speed ups and 10 unforced errors. I'll be like +5, something like that for matches. Like I feel like that's a much better stat to show both how valuable they are and what kind of role they're playing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes sense. I think that's more along the lines of a stat that obviously makes more sense as opposed to, like you could sit there and dink all day, right? I mean, most people could probably, if they're just dinking, most pros, you would expect them to be able to hit 40, 50 dinks in a row, if you're not trying anything else.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't really know exactly what stats are going to be kind of the future of showing how good a player actually is. But I'm sure we have yet to really show the ones that are right. And we're probably showing a lot of extraneous ones right now. Hopefully that comes along soon, because I'd like to see some more stats on players that exemplifies kind of what they do well and shows more of what they are as a player than the public perception of what they are.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you saw the NBA does the thing now where they basically track every movement of their players. I think that would be an interesting stat.
That's a really big one in hockey. They're kind of similar sports in terms of positioning being really valuable. Maybe even more so in hockey though, and kind of player tracking is interesting. That one might not be super interesting in pickleball because you just see the player most.
Sure, small court. You're like, yeah.
But yeah, there's lots of stuff to be explored. How about your team, Tyler? What do you think?
So we're in Group C.
Yeah,
we have Miami again.
Tyler and Tyson. Here we go.
Who else is in there?
Yay.
You guys have Dallas,
James.
I think you have Atlanta.
No, we don't have Atlanta.
How bad at poor Atlanta. They might be the worst MLP team. They should go to Challenger.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be fun. Hayden, he played one match and then he had to sit out.
If you pitted Zane's Pandas against that team, who comes out on top?
Zane's Pandas versus Atlanta. I think the Pandas might actually get their first win.
I don't think so.
It was.
Hey, me and you had a close one against the Frisco Pandas. That was like one of our closest matches.
Atlanta's women would be better than Frisco's.
Yeah.
You think?
Do you remember how well he did in that match against us though? When we played the Pandas, he played with Yana against you and Megan, and DJ was just like a wizard for that match.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, it was pretty insane.
Yeah, that was. I remember that match.
DJ sent me a text and said that he's going to be the Challenger League MVP.
Attaboy. Way to have
he said he's embracing it. He's embracing the Challenger.
Yeah, well, he should. He should be able to dominate. Dallas, I think, had an underperforming. Like, they had a tough pool.
I thought they were going to be really good. Yeah,
they were my top 2 pick team. I thought they were going to be really good.
Yeah, I thought they would too. But I mean, James, Jay, Callie, and Elise, right?
Yeah, just
I think
seems
they
solid.
all kind of underperformed.
yeah.
Yeah, but I thought the Ranchers would be better too. But I think Dylan was sick.
Yeah, Dylan was sick, and I think one of their girls just didn't play well. I forget who. I think they lost.
Yeah, Stratman was awful. I mean, Stratman wasn't even going to be there till 24 hours before. So I think that's got to be hard.
They're making their room reservations, their apartment.
I just think mentally that's got to be hard if you're, yeah.
Yeah, it is also funny that people definitely draw conclusions about MLP teams so quickly. But I'm like, yeah, but if 1 or 2 points went the other way around in any given in certain matches, you'd have a completely different draw. And just there's so many factors where things are different so quickly, unless you have 1 or 2 teams that are clearly better than everybody else. Like last season, I felt like the drafting was subpar to the point of the Mad Drops and the Pioneers being pretty overpowered. This year, I feel like people are drawing conclusions a little quickly. I think there's still a lot of room for different champions. I think we might have 3 different champions in 3 different events. That's going to be my call for the remaining 2.
I think you can see that. The thing with MLP too, like AJ came on the other day and he said, he was kind of bagging on the MLP owners a little bit because he's like, there's this talk that they want to do this team thing and they want you to move to the cities and all these things, which it's kind of been shot down, obviously. But he's like, but then after one event, you have these owners trying to trade their entire team away.
Yeah, I don't think you could mix those 2 things. So if you were to do a whole city-based thing in the future, I'm sure there are rules for how long you had to keep a player and all that.
Right? Yeah.
Moves to a new city within 1 week, they're out.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody's getting traded after a month in a city. That would just be logistically too difficult. So
yeah. I guess the NBA technically has those rules. You can't if you've been picked up by a team, you can't be traded till February and things like that. But it was just funny because he's like, these guys panic after one event.
Yeah,
they do. They definitely do. At least a lot of them.
Yeah.
So. Awesome. All right. Well, Ben, we're going to wrap up. If you can stay on for 2 more minutes, we're going to end recording and then make sure everything hopefully saves so we have this.